You're listening to Big World Network.
Average. Season 1, Episode 4. Written by Jonathan Thompson, read by Heather Thompson. Somewhere along the line, I forget exactly where, I heard some TV modeling expert make the claim that a true test of a woman's beauty was to shave her head. And although I did and still do think this sweeping statement is unnecessarily insulting to huge numbers of women, my across-the-street neighbor, Grace LaGuardia, was a testament to the truth behind it. She kept her honey-colored hair cropped to a short pixie cut that made her vast Elizabeth Taylor-styled eyes look even bigger. Year-round, in a blatant disregard for the weather, she wore light, billowy dresses that flowed around her even when she was perfectly still. But even her ethereal beauty couldn't hide one inescapable truth that sadly lingers around so many beautiful girls. She was pure evil. Okay, maybe evil is too harsh a word, but everything she did and said was tinged by biting sarcasm rooted in a deep irritation for everything around her. It was like she was permanently and constantly itchy, tortured by any little change in her environment. Prickly. Prickly is a much better word. Grace LaGuardia was prickly. The morning after Dad had sent me plummeting to my doom, I walked across the street to where Grace and I waited for the bus together every day. I don't know if I would have considered us friends. Grace didn't really seem to have friends, but we spent a lot of time together, and I was shamelessly addicted to the shiny moments when she was in a good mood. And the brisk air and frost on my window when I woke up meant this morning would be one of those blessed moments. Grace loved the cold, and it always produced a marked improvement in her mood. Still, I was careful as I approached. "Hey, Grace," I said. "Hey," she said. And was that a smile? I tried to pull myself together and keep cool, but I might have smiled back. As soon as we got on the bus, though, Grace clammed up. Usually the ruckus of the bus was enough to get her hackles up, but today was special. Today there was a new irritant. The bus picked him up a few blocks away from my house. The short, stout boy waddled up the stairs and down the aisle, grinning broadly at everyone. Seat after seat, he was turned away with no effect to his demeanor. This type of unbreakable optimism was especially threatening to someone like me, and it was toxic to Grace. She was sitting across from me, alone, and as the newcomer bounced toward us, I wanted to jump up and warn him. My throat went dry. He eyed the empty seat next to Grace excitedly. My heart began to pound. And he did it. He plopped himself down next to Grace with his oversized green backpack perched on his lap and that stupid smile stretching across his freckled face. "Hi!" he said, looking at Grace. Even from the other side of the bus, I could feel the temperature around her plummet. This kid obviously couldn't, though. He was undaunted. "My name's Tim—" "I don't care what your name is," Grace snarled. She actually looked like she was in pain. She was so angry. "I sit by myself." Hey, Tim, over here," I finally piped in. Tim looked back and forth between us, confused, then cautiously slid back out of his seat, never turning his back to Grace. He was learning fast, I'll give him that. "Wow, thanks," he said while positioning himself next to me. "So hey!" His smile returned and his voice sped up to what I would learn was his normal breakneck pace. "As I was saying, my name is Timothy Nathan Acton." "Hi, I'm—" But he wouldn't let me finish. "Everybody at my old school called me Tinacton, though. Get it? Acton? Yeah, I tried, but this was apparently more of a speech than a conversation. "I always thought it was a very predictable nickname, but it stuck anyway. I used to wonder if my dad named me that on purpose in sort of a mad and fueled zeal, but I don't think so. Probably not, I think. He doesn't care about football. I don't either. Maybe he wanted me to, though. Sometimes I think he wanted me to become some sort of athlete and was setting me up to be known as Tough Acton Tinacton, but make no mistake, I do act, and those actions are tough." He laughed a ridiculous, maniacal belly laugh that shot me back and startled several people awake. Now's your chance, I thought. Introduce yourself. Go, go, go! But the pressure was almost too much for me, and I stumbled over my own name. Hey, Tim, I'm George. Hi, No, wait, I'm Quinn, not George. That's my dad. Oh, hi, Quinn. My dad's name's Ben. And this continued all the way to school. And all the way down the hall. And what's this? Joy of joys! All the way through our first of 9 classes we would share. Could this day with my new best friend get any better? Huzzah! We're locker neighbors! I learned all about everything. I think by the end of the day I knew just about everything there was to know about this Timothy Nathan Acton. Or at least I would have, had my day not been cut short. We were in English language arts, which I thoroughly enjoyed. In general, any time I complained to Dad that he needed to let me focus on school, I was just making excuses. Basically, I just used school to try and guilt my dad into being somewhat of a responsible parent. The only class I really genuinely cared about was ELA. I sort of coasted through everything else. I guess if we're being honest, I coasted through that too, but that's only because I could and it was fun. It was a sport. The class had essentially become a kind of battle of wits between me and my teacher, Mrs. Lake. She would assign us a book to read, I would bypass the reading, talk to people who had actually read the book, and glean enough to be able to fake my way through a test. One for me. She would catch on to me and rewrite the test to ask insane details like what color hat was so-and-so wearing on such and such a page. One for Mrs. Lake. I was working on one of my own stories since I found it much more enjoyable to write than I did to read most of the assignments, only half-heartedly listening to something about Catcher in the Rye when I heard a series of loud, frightening noises outside that would be the beginning of my day's interruption. Specifically, I heard this series of loud, frightening noises outside. Metal twisting, glass breaking, people screaming, and then most frightening of all was the deep guttural voice that bellowed down the panic-filled halls. Bring me Quentin Pierce!
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.